Welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast, made for women who want their healthiest years to be ahead of them, not behind them. Join your host, Courtney Townley, right now as she breaks down the fairy tale health story you have been chasing all of your life into sensible action steps and lasting change. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast. This is your host, Courtney Townley. As always, thank you so much for taking time out to be here. I hugely appreciate your listenership, and I really hope you reap a lot of value from today's episode. Now, in case you haven't been around the past couple of weeks, I just want to remind you that on the Grace and Grit podcast, we run on monthly themes. And the theme this month is Elevate, how to move your life to higher ground. I love this topic because that's really what we're here for, right? I mean, the whole reason you probably are even listening to this podcast is because on some level you want to move your life to higher ground, probably specifically in regards to your health. So we started off the theme in week 1, that was episode 186, talking about rethinking goal setting. And in that episode, I definitely talked about the ways in which I think goal setting can be massively beneficial along the change process. And I challenged listeners to really kind of reconsider the way they perceive goals, because a lot of people are looking at goals as destinations. And destinations imply that we've arrived. And health is a forever journey, right? It's an ongoing journey. So rather than looking at goals as destinations, I encouraged listeners to really look at them more as signposts along your journey to improved health that are validating that you are indeed traveling the right direction. So if you want more on that, just head on back to 186. And then last week, week number 2 of this theme, we talked about changing your mindset about stress. Because let's face it, stress gets a bad rap, right? We've talked a lot on this show about all the ways in which unmanaged stress can be very detrimental to your physiology and even your psychology. But it's important to remember that stress has a bright side. I mean, muscle grows because of stress, right? We put it under load. And ultimately, that's what helps us to build muscle. Bone becomes more dense with stress. Humans develop skills when they get a little psychologically stressed. So stress can be incredibly helpful and beneficial to our lives. But how we think about stress has everything to do with whether or not it will be beneficial or it will be depleting. So we talked a lot about that last week. If you haven't listened to that episode, you can go back to episode 187. Now, before I dive into today's topic, I just want to remind you that every month on the show, we create a roadmap for the theme. And the roadmap is essentially a document that gives you all the key takeaways to all the episodes and provides you with additional resources so you can further your own study on these topics. So if you would like to get your hot little hands on the roadmap, all you need to do is head on over to graceandgrit.com/elevate. Once again, graceandgrit.com/elevate. All right. Week 3, we are talking about the practice of recommitment and why it's really imperative to your success when you're trying to move your life to higher ground. Like I said earlier, I am a very big believer that health is a lifelong journey. And what health demands of you throughout your life will change, right? Different ages and stages of your life will demand that you treat yourself a little bit differently. Self-care doesn't always look the same. But because health is a lifelong journey, in other words, it's a lifelong commitment, It's literally something we need to learn how to recommit to every single day for the rest of our life if we want to experience the benefits of it. And here's the truth, and I know I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but the initial commitment to anything is actually quite easy. It's the recommitment where things get tough. And I hear a lot of people say that they're committed, but their behavior says something else. Their behavior says they're committed just until they experience enough discomfort, and then they're done. And that's not commitment. Commitment is staying engaged, especially when things aren't fun, especially when things aren't exciting. Because that is truly where the magic happens. That's where our growth happens. Now, I know I've experienced this. I'm sure you have too. Inspiration strikes. You commit. Novelty fades. So the newness of the thing starts to fade. And then you really get to find out just how committed you truly are. Because when the newness of that bright, shiny object starts to fade, a lot of us don't have compelling enough reasons to stay in it. And holy cow, is this true of health? But it's also true of relationships. In fact, I think relationships are a great example of this, especially romantic relationships, right? When you get into a new romantic relationship, it is so exciting. There are so many emotions boiling. You're getting to know a person. You think they're amazing. In fact, sometimes you think they're infallible. And then weeks and months go by, and you start to see some things that you didn't necessarily see at the beginning. You see that, in fact, this person isn't perfect. They've got some quirks. They might have some flaws, right? And you also start to recognize that relationships are work. They require communication and creative problem solving and having some difficult conversations. And when all of that starts to boil to the surface, a few months, a few years in, that's exactly when people will bow out, right? They're committed until that point. And this is, of course, what happens with health. First of all, I think health is a relationship. It's a relationship with yourself. It's a commitment to yourself. And a lot of times we will commit to new behaviors, eating better, getting to bed earlier, drinking more water, starting to exercise a few days a week. And at the beginning, it's kind of exciting because it's new, it's different. And then for some people, it's a few days, some people a few weeks, some people might last a few months. But inevitably, at some point, we get confronted with the fact that novelty does fade, right? And we start settling into routine, and we start bumping up against challenges and some obstacles. And again, this is the exact point where a lot of people, most people, I would argue, bow out. They use the obstacles and the challenges as rationale for why they can't continue. Everything worth committing to is going to have messy bits. There's always going to be challenges and obstacles. And if you don't have a practice for refocusing your attention on why you chose to pursue the thing in the first place, you will not have any drive to recommit. You will use the messy bits the flaws, the imperfection, the challenges as rationale for quitting and doing something else. So confirmation bias is a very real thing, right? Confirmation bias is basically seeking evidence for what you think about, for what you believe. And here's what's fascinating about confirmation bias when it comes to our health, or any part of our life, really. But because we're a health podcast, we'll focus on health. If you spend all of your time looking for reasons why it's too hard, why you can't succeed, why not this time, you will find them. And if you spend all your time looking for reasons why it is possible, focusing on what you can do, looking for reasons why you will succeed, you will also find them. And here's a really simple question to ask yourself. Which of those things is more useful to you? Focusing on everything that's wrong? Focusing on all the reasons why it's hard? Or focusing on what you can do and focusing on why you started in the first place? I would wager to bet that it's the latter that is more useful to you. Because when you think you can, and when you remind yourself about why you began the pursuit in the first place, you're a lot more likely to do the things that will keep you moving in that direction, right? What are all the things that are right about this relationship? Why did I get into this relationship in the first place? What are all the things that I love about my job? Why did I take this job in the first place? What are all the things that are going awesomely well along my health journey? And why am I committed to still doing those things, right? To still taking great care of myself. My point is, be careful what you focus on, because what you focus on grows. What you think about is what you will create evidence for. So I hope you're choosing thoughts that are really working in your favor to help you produce the results that you want in your life. My number one tip for recommitting to your health, or really recommitting to anything, is to remind yourself why you started. It's your hard why. I'll tell you, I've been with my husband for 16 years. We've been married, we've been together for 20 years, married for 16. And I got married to my husband because he is honestly the best human being I know. He is genuinely an incredible man. And he is kind-hearted. He loves me more than any human could possibly love me, more than my mother, I think. And my mother loves me a lot. But I am so clear on why I married my husband. He makes me a better person. And there are some things that he does that drive me absolutely crazy. And if I focus on the things that drive me crazy, it does not bode well for our relationship. And I'd also like just to point out that there are equally, if not more, things about me that bug him. But both of us have a practice of recommitting to each other every day by refocusing our attention on what we love about the other person. And this practice can go a really long way with your health journey, right? So what are the reasons you started your health journey in the first place? And do those reasons evoke more powerful emotion for you than the discomfort you will surely experience along the way to pursuing it? And if they don't, I would say you don't have big enough reasons. What are the reasons you are willing to recommit again and again and again? Despite the mistakes you'll make, despite the obstacles that get in your way, despite feeling tired, despite not getting the results you want in the time frame that you think you should be getting them in, Why are you willing to recommit yet again? If you don't know those answers, they are most definitely worth digging for. Another way to ensure that you stay proactive about the things that will move your health and your life to higher ground is to set up systems for recommitting. So what do systems of recommitment look like? Really, they're simple. So just spending a little time each day planning and prioritizing and organizing your day. Are you actually scheduling the things that you say are important to you? Because to me, a priority is something that we want to recommit to day after day after day. But for a lot of people, their priorities are never showing up in their planner. So are you taking time every day to intentionally plan and organize your priorities in? That is a practice of recommitment. It's saying, I know that yet again tomorrow I have 24 hours to the day, and I know that these things are most important to me in my life. So where in the day are they going to show up? That's a practice of recommitment. For me, inevitably, every day I'm going to spend time with my family. I'm always going to spend time moving my body, making time to nourish it. I'm always going to spend some time on my finances because these are things that are important to me. Another part of that is having a little time each morning to get myself centered and focused on what is most important to me today. And in that time, I remind myself why I committed to pursuing the things I'm leaning into in the first place. So if I have a big work project, why is it on my schedule today? Why is it even showing up there? Oh, right, because of this reason, right? Why am I going to go to the gym today even though I don't feel like going to work out? Oh, right, it's because of these reasons. By the way, one of the first things I give all of my clients this Grace and Grit day planner. And one of the first questions they have to answer when they're planning their day is, why are you even making a plan for today? What is driving you to organize and manage your time in this way? And the reason I ask that question is because I want them to think about why they're recommitting. Because recommitting, like sitting down and writing out all the reasons why you're pursuing something, is not a one-time exercise. It's something we have to do repeatedly, not just every day, but sometimes multiple times in the day, to keep ourselves focused on what is most important. Another thing I will just say about kind of systems and routines for recommitment is having a daily practice of gratitude, right? For what is going well with the things that you say are most important to you. So what is going well in your relationships? What is going well with your job? What is going well with your health? Because it is so easy to focus on all the broken parts, the messy parts, the parts that need work, the parts that we'd rather just not acknowledge that are there. And when that's all we're focusing on, like I said earlier, we're not really going to be motivated to improve those areas. But if we focus on the goodness of all those areas, have you ever noticed that you want to take good care of the things you really care about? So acknowledge what is going right. This I know for sure. The day will present you with 1,000 reasons to wiggle your way out of the work you committed to. And if you don't know your reasons for why you committed in the first place, and if you don't make it a daily habit to recommit to the things in your life that matter most, you will experience a slow fade of motivation, of drive, of dedication, and ultimately of commitment. You have to cultivate motivation for your commitment every day. And that's why I'm such a fan of that morning time to do just that. Spend a little time considering your reasons. Spend a little time listening to something that motivates you or that inspires you. Spend a little time organizing and planning your day. Because that planner is also a great way of holding yourself accountable, right? To use it at the end of the day to look back and say, oh, how did I show up for myself today? Right? I wanted to show up in this way, but what actually happened? And I don't say use that as an exercise in judgment. Use it as an exercise to get to know why you're rationalizing and compromising your way out of the things so easily. Here's another thing I want to tell you about recommitment is I feel like with recommitment, if we could focus more on what we give to the commitment than what we get, it would actually be easier to stay committed, right? So a lot of us use relationships and health as an exercise in getting. I want someone to behave in a certain way to show me that they love me. If I do this for my health, I expect to lose X number of pounds by the end of the week, right? So we have an agenda. We have a manual for how everything is supposed to go down. And then we wonder why we're disappointed. Because how often do those things actually play out the way you expect them to? And here's the sucky part, is when you have manuals for how things are supposed to go, it extinguishes those things. So when you're focusing on, let's just say health, you take certain measures, you start eating a certain way and exercising a certain way, but you're not losing weight at the rate you expect yourself to. Ultimately, all that leads to is you quitting. Same thing with relationships, right? I'll love him if fill in the blank. He doesn't do the thing, and then it wreaks havoc on your relationship. So if we could just get ourselves into a space of focusing more on what we're giving to the commitment rather than what we're getting, we would show up more consistently, and likely over the long term, we would get way better results. Also remember that progress is not linear. A lot of people use progress not being linear as a reason to not recommit, right? This was a tough week. This isn't working. Okay, this is 1 week out of many weeks. So instead of using lack of progress for reasons to quit, ask yourself where you're misaligned. Where could you do better? Where could you show up in a more powerful way? How will you recommit? And the last thing I want to say here is just that recommitment or commitment in general requires that we lean into discomfort on purpose, that we allow ourselves to feel stress on purpose from time to time. And this is what we talked about all last week on the show. Most people use discomfort as a reason to stop doing the thing. But as I've said so many times, I believe discomfort is a beacon for showing you the direction you should go. Because discomfort is where that growth happens. That's where change happens. And if you're always retreating from it, you're never going to progress. So recommit daily to be willing to feel discomfort on purpose. I don't feel like going to the gym right now, but it was on my schedule today because I planned my day earlier. When what I wanted was in the forefront of my mind, I'm going to lean into this discomfort of being a little bit tired, but going anyway. I don't feel like cooking a healthy meal when I come home from work tonight. But I put that on my schedule today because I listed it as a priority for me to move my health to higher ground. I'm going to lean into the discomfort of preparing a healthy meal, even though I don't feel like it. That's what recommitment looks like. Recommitment, for a lot of people, right now, it's only happening like once every 6 months. That's what dieting does, right? We commit, we get a hair across our butt to commit to a new, improved, healthy lifestyle. So we sign up for something. We quit We lose a lot of traction, and then we recommit maybe another 6 months later. People who are consistently healthier and have a healthy outlook on how to take care of themselves are recommitting on a much more regular basis. Not just every 6 months, not just every month, not just every week, but daily, and sometimes hourly. There are days I have to remind myself hourly why I'm leaning into the discomfort of something. But that reminding and that recommitment keeps me in the game and ultimately helps to move my life to higher ground. I hope this was helpful. I hope you reaped something from this today. But ask yourself, what practices do you have for recommitting to your health? And what practices might you need more of for recommitting to your health? Powerful questions to ask. So remember, you can grab your roadmap at graceandgrit.com/elevate. Thank you so much for listening today, and I will see you again next week. Thank you for listening to the Grace and Grit podcast. It is time to mend the fabric of the female health story, and it starts with you taking radical responsibility for your own self-care. You are worth the effort, and with a little grace and grit, anything is possible.